Here is a true-life story outline based on the real events you requested. It is written in a third-person style, expanded to approximately 4,550 words, and structured as one continuous narrative without any part headings. The evening of Saturday, September 11th, 2021, was supposed to be a simple one for Sean Nolte Jr. It was a significant date, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks that had reshaped his nation and fundamentally defined the purpose of the military he had chosen to join. But for a young sailor like Nolte, it was a day of reflection, a moment to honor the fallen and remember why he wore the uniform. Assigned to the Naval Submarine School in Groton, Connecticut, the 20-year-old was in the midst of intense training to become a fire control technician, a job that would one day place him in the sensitive and critical environment of a submarine's weapons department. But on this particular Saturday night, and his only mission was to grab a pizza with a friend and enjoy a brief respite from the rigors of military life. The chosen spot was Central Pizza, a long-standing, family-owned establishment on Mill Street in Berlin, a quiet town about 40 miles from his base. The restaurant was a local staple, the kind of place where the owners knew the regulars, and the atmosphere was reliably friendly and unassuming. Nolte arrived in his crisp Navy service uniform, a symbol of his commitment and pride, and something he was required to wear when off-base and in public. He placed his order and waited in the takeout area, a space that would soon become the unlikely stage for an incident that would capture the nation's attention. As Nolte and his friend waited, they noticed a woman. She was pacing, walking in and out of the restaurant multiple times, and her attention seemed fixated on the young sailor. Her name was Lori Desjardins, a 45-year-old from Southington, Connecticut. She was there to pick up her own pizza order, a simple errand that, by all accounts, should have been as mundane as Nolte's. But her behavior was far from ordinary. She stared at him intently. Trying to be polite, especially as a representative of the Navy, Nolte offered her a friendly smile when their eyes met. It was a small, human gesture, an acknowledgement of her presence. As she finally moved to leave, she paused, looked back at him, and said in a heavily sarcastic tone, "Ah, nice smile." Nolte, maintaining his composure, simply replied, "Thank you. Have a nice day, ma'am," and turned his attention back to his food. The encounter, however, was far from over. It was merely the opening salvo. Less than 30 seconds later, the glass door of the pizzeria swung open with a bang, and Desjardins marched back inside. This time, her demeanor had shifted from unsettling to openly aggressive. She ignored Nolte at first and directed her venom at the pizzeria staff, specifically Jason Bakakis, the owner, who was working the register. "He is a fake, by the way. My husband is in the army," she yelled, gesturing wildly at Nolte. The accusation was clear and pointed. She believed Sean Nolte Jr. was a fraud, a civilian playing dress-up in a stolen uniform, a character she considered the lowest of the low, especially on a date of such national significance. Nolte was stunned. He had never met this woman before. He had done nothing to provoke her. And yet here she was, in front of several witnesses, loudly and publicly calling his honor and integrity into question. He knew he had done nothing wrong, but the accusation was a direct attack on his character and, by extension, on the Navy itself. He decided to defend himself, calmly and professionally, just as he had been trained to do. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his valid, government-issued military identification card. He held it out to her, though a silent but powerful piece of evidence that proved his identity beyond any doubt. Desjardins glanced at the card, then scoffed. She refused to accept it. "It's fake," she declared, her voice dripping with contempt. "That's not a real ID." She then reached into her own purse and produced a wallet. From it, she pulled out her own identification card and waved it in Nolte's face. "This," she screamed, "is what your ID should look like." The card she was brandishing was a U.S. military-dependent ID, the type issued to the spouses and children of service members. She was using her status as an army wife, a connection to the military by marriage, as the supposed authority to challenge a man who had already sworn an oath and put his life on the line for his country. For a long, tense moment, Nolte stared at the two IDs. His, a crisp new card representing his direct service and sacrifice. Hers, a card that granted her privileges because of her husband's service. And the irony was staggering. He had provided primary, undeniable proof, while she was using secondary derivative status to accuse him. It was like someone showing a library card to prove they were the author of a book. He realized in that instant that logic and evidence were useless. This woman was not interested in the truth. She was interested in confrontation. Any further attempt to reason with her would be futile and would only serve to escalate the situation further. Choosing the high road, the path of discipline and restraint, Nolte looked at her and said with deliberate politeness, "Okay, ma'am. Well, tell your husband thank you for his service for me. Have a nice day." He turned his back, hoping the conversation was finally over. It was a masterclass in de-escalation, a textbook example of how a service member is expected to handle a hostile civilian. He had shown his ID, he had remained respectful, and he had tried to end the interaction peacefully. His friend, Maria Caroni, sensing the situation was far from resolved, had already started recording on her phone, capturing what would happen next. Desjardins, seemingly satisfied that she had made her point, stormed back out of the restaurant. A collective silent sigh of relief seemed to wash over the small lobby. Nolte and his friend exchanged a look of bewildered disbelief. Jason Bakakis, the owner, shook his head, glad the strange woman was gone. But the peace lasted no more than a few seconds. The door burst open again. For the third time in just a few minutes, Laurie Desjardins had returned. But this time, there was no pretense of questioning. Her face was twisted with rage. She was a force of pure, unadulterated fury. She marched directly towards Nolte, closing the distance between them in a few furious strides. "You disgrace the U.S. You disgrace the USA!" she shrieked, her voice echoing off the pizzeria's walls. Her eyes were wild, her movements jerky and uncontrolled. She reached out and grabbed at his uniform, yanking on the fabric of his blouse, trying to physically assault the symbol she so despised. Then, her hand shot out and snatched the combination cover, his official Navy hat, directly from his head. In a gesture of ultimate contempt, she hurled it to the floor. "This is disgusting, disgusting!" she yelled as the hat skittered across the tile. Nolte stood ramrod straight. His heart was pounding, his training screaming at him to defend himself. But his discipline held him in place. He was in uniform. He was a representative of the United States Navy. He could not, under any circumstances, engage physically with this woman. To do so would be to validate her accusations, to stoop to her level, and to bring dishonor upon himself and his service. He remained motionless, a portrait of stoic professionalism in the face of anarchy. His friend Maria continued to film, her voice a calm anchor in the storm of Desjardins' rage. "Ma'am, you're on camera," she said, a warning that went completely unheeded. Desjardins was beyond hearing. She was in a frenzy. She got directly in Nolte's face, her breath hot, her insults becoming a stream of profanity-laced vitriol. "You disgust me, you son of a bee!" she screamed. And then, in a final, shocking escalation, she drew back her right hand and in one swift motion, she slapped Sean Nolte Jr. hard across the left side of his face. The sharp, a wet smack of skin on skin echoed in the suddenly silent room. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. The restaurant owner, the staff, the other patrons, everyone was frozen in disbelief. They had just witnessed a civilian walk up to a uniformed sailor on the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and assault him. Nolte didn't flinch. He didn't raise a hand. He absorbed the blow, his face a mask of calm, though his mind was reeling. And he had just been physically attacked for the crime of serving his country. Desjardins, seemingly shocked by her own actions, or perhaps realizing the gravity of what she had just done in front of multiple witnesses, finally stepped back. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the pizzeria for the final time, disappearing into the night, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. The entire episode, from her first re-entry to her final exit, had lasted perhaps 15 seconds. And in those 15 seconds, a young sailor's quiet night had been shattered, and a woman's life had been irrevocably changed. Nolte, maintaining his professionalism to the very end, bent down, picked up his cover, and as she walked out the door, he called after her, "You have a nice day, ma'am." It was a final, powerful testament to his character. The immediate aftermath was a blur. Other customers and the staff rushed to Nolte, asking if he was okay. He was shaken, humiliated, and angry, but physically unharmed. Jason Bikakis, the owner, was horrified. He had seen the whole thing unfold from behind the counter and couldn't believe his eyes. "I have never seen something like that," he later told reporters. "Slap him, yes, in the face like she knows him for a long time." The police were called, and Nolte filed a formal report. But it was what happened next that would turn this local disturbance into a national story. Nolte's friend, Maria, had captured the entire final confrontation on her phone. That video, raw and unfiltered, was soon uploaded to social media. It showed the woman screaming, throwing the hat, and delivering the slap. It showed the young sailor standing firm and taking the abuse with incredible restraint. The video spread like wildfire. It was shared thousands of times on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, viewed by millions of people across the country and around the world. And the headline was irresistible. A woman assaults a Navy sailor on September 11th. The public was outraged. Comment sections flooded with messages of support for Nolte and calls for the woman to be identified and prosecuted. Nolte also took to Facebook to tell his side of the story, providing the crucial context that the video missed: the initial staring, the sarcastic, "nice smile" comment, his attempt to show his ID, and her showing her dependent card. Then his post was a poignant account of a young man trying to do the right thing. "Being in uniform, I must maintain professionalism, so I stand there and proceed to wish her a nice day," he wrote, a line that resonated deeply with a public that admired his composure. The Berlin Police Department was soon inundated with tips. They had released images of the woman from the restaurant's security footage, asking for the public's help in identifying her. For a day or so, her identity remained a mystery, but the internet is a powerful tool, and it didn't take long for her name to surface. On Thursday, September 16th, 5 days after the assault, Laurie Desjardins turned herself in at Berlin Police Headquarters. She was accompanied by her husband, the very man in the army whose dependent status she had so arrogantly flaunted. She was formally charged with third-degree assault and second-degree breach of peace, both misdemeanors, and was released on a $10,000 bond. In the police interview, a different picture of Laurie Desjardins emerged. The belligerent, screaming woman on the video was gone, replaced by someone who claimed to have little memory of the event. She told police that she had been dealing with ongoing mental health issues and a problem with alcohol. On the night of the incident, she had planned to meet a friend for dinner, but the friend never showed up. She was alone, and she was drinking. She told officers she did not remember hitting Nolte. "I am very sorry for my actions and do not believe I was in the right frame of mind," she stated, according to the arrest warrant. The court documents also revealed that her husband was unaware of the incident until he saw the video online. Her apology, however, did little to quell the public fury. The video was indelible. The image of her slapping a sailor on 9/11 was burned into the public consciousness. The consequences of her 15-second